So, panel, ops case, okay, and something that sometimes opening up makes them run away. Ops case is that we have a certain level of control over artificial intelligence, but that's because they didn't get something Gideon kept on saying. There's artificial intelligence that we allow to happen, like self-driving cars, because they are programmed to do so. Let's read the info slide again. It says independent knowledge acquisition, independent goal setting. Listen, if there exists a state where people come in, people can always set their goals, but their goals must always be under the goals that the state sets. But then if there exists a group of people, say a Christian state, where there is a group, a Muslim community who come in and say, we want to do everything that we want, that does not go with, that may not even go with whatever rules that exist in the state. So a state allows such a group to happen within its confines, especially when such a group possess destructive elements. That's basically what this debate has been about. But let me do two clarifications from opening sides and bomb the shit out of opening before we go on to the closing debate and why it's more important. First of all, the whole idea of evolution of species. Let us consider the actors that always partake in evolution of species. So if we are talking about artificial intelligence now, it's not about a poor country like Ghana who does not even have any space exploration like abilities and what have you. It is countries and scientific groups that have a lot of access to capital. So that means that when evolution is happening, it's only the best in society financially and then like with resource wealth that can always partake in such measures. That is the same as Joseph Mengele and the Nazi regime that was interested in evolving the human race they had at that time to ensure that everybody becomes as superior as German people and performing experiments and what have you. We think that when that happens, states and such rich groups have the power to use such research to annihilate groups that they dislike. And so then artificial intelligence that has such goals will not even be pursued by all humans across the globe, but to be pursued by countries that have histories of oppressing smaller countries and what have you. So you don't think even countries like US should have the power to be able to pursue artificial intelligence. You think you should ban all forms of research, even whatsoever. But then we tell you that, so for that reason, no such power should be put in the hands of such groups. But the second thing in this debate, that is, when an entity possesses destructive abilities, should we allow that entity to happen? Human beings as ourselves, we possess destructive abilities. But what is the issue as to why we allow human beings to exist? Because first of all, human beings submit to state laws and regulations. And then secondly, there is also the ease of ending human lives. So people can be always concerned to death penalty and what have you. But then artificial intelligence that has all its own independent process does not have any plug that you can just pull and then set out. But then it tells us that, listen, artificial intelligence has no control. Like, it improves on its own knowledge base. More importantly, every superior element is always interested in eliminating its threats. So artificial intelligence, when it gets the opportunity, will want to eliminate its immediate threat. That's the human species. And if you don't know that, what's Terminator? You understand what these people do and everything. Go, guy, we bombed the shit out of opening. So listen, what should this debate have been about? States do not endorse groups that have their own goal setting, like procedures or preferences, especially when such things can always affect how the state operates. Okay, so if a state exists, it's always existing because of two things. First of all, the certainty that that state can provide its own uniform laws that applies to everybody and what have you. But more important, it exists because everybody knows this is how things work in the state. When artificial intelligence that gathers its own goals and what have you, it sets goals that do not conform to what the state wants. And so then that kind of destructive tendency that they possess, even though humans can also possess that tendency, because we lack control over their independent goal setting procedures, it means that states, if states allow them to exist, it means that it's a bad thing for states. But more importantly, states cannot control, cannot permit things to exist that they do not have control over. Because when such things happen, it means that states are taking responsibility for things that they cannot control. Why is that a bad thing? Because we tell you, states have every responsibility to ensure they provide the best life available for citizens. And so even if they gain a certain level of marginal utility, we still think that insofar as that thing exists for a bad, has bad tendencies, they should not allow it to happen. Erasmus?
See, we told you, you yourself admit that in AI, there could be general installation of human values even in them. And lots of species are existent which are threats to us. So if you have even no background measure for it, these are things that will not create.
Listen, human beings are taught human values. Some deviate. So, but the reason, even when human beings deviate, we still teach human values and allow them to exist because of the control measure. But artificial intelligence, if there's ever a deviation, there's no control measure, there's no plug that you can just go and put out like a projector and say, we've ended it for you. It does not happen with artificial intelligence that has its own independent knowledge acquisition and goal setting. But more importantly, like this is a very important, listen guys, this is a very important issue. Even when there are entities, that's why I asked the final PR, when there are entities that exist, that possess destructive tendencies, but still possess a certain level of utility, do we like disallow its existence? We tell you yes, we disallow its existence. Why? Because, for example, nuclear programs, nuclear energy has the potential to provide all the kind of energy that the entire world needs. But we also know at that same time that nuclear energy can also lead to the possession of nuclear weapons by states that can be used to cause massive destruction. Because this exists, world governments always disincentivize countries from pursuing nuclear energy, because in the status quo there exist alternative forms of energy that we can use. That's the same way the human race can survive very much without artificial intelligence. And so insofar as there exist alternatives, and especially when this entity in itself has huge destructive tendencies, do we allow it to exist? We say no. The reason we even allow nuclear weapons to exist in some spaces is because we still need a fool like Donald Trump or somebody else to press the button. But with artificial intelligence, there is nobody. Like, nobody has any control over this. And unless closely opposition in this debate comes to prove to us that there's a certain level, like even though artificial intelligence has no control, that some way somehow should allow them to exist. I hope that's like they show us something better without them come tell us that human beings can be superior and smarter than other people. If chimpanzees, listen, it's very important. If chimpanzees had the opportunity to create human beings, that would threaten their superiority as chimpanzees and still allow them to happen. They are the biggest fools ever.